What up, everyone on Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube? If you guys are hopping on, I just totally forget the camera's over there sometimes, and then I look at this camera. If you guys are hopping on any of the platforms, what's good? If you guys have any questions at the end of this, we're going to be asking a bunch of questions. So if you're on Instagram, make sure to go to the bottom. There's a question mark, and then you can ask any questions or Q&A at the end. If you're on the streams, you can put it in the comments, and we'll make sure to answer as many questions as we can. And hopefully we don't take too much of Josh's time up. Awesome. So welcome everyone who's here. I'm going to do a quick bio on Josh. First off, we're going to do a quick bio on ourselves. Danny, do you want to do our bio?
Yeah, sure. We can start with our bio. So Origin Films, we are a Toronto-based commercial production company, and we love what we do. Me and Poy started around 4 years ago, basically just starting off doing free gigs to build our career, and we kind of found our niche, and it kind of snowballed from there. Where we are now, we basically have a team of around 20-ish people, 10 plus photographers and another 10 plus videographers, cinematographers, sound technicians, DPs, producers, scriptwriters, everything you can think of to run a production company. And our goal for today's live stream is to, give you guys some value. If you watch the other two podcasts, we had Andres and Evan, who are both incredible DPs and cinematographers. And now we have Josh Morgan, who is in a way an influencer and also runs his own production side. And we're excited to hear how he got started in his career, and hopefully those of you who might be in a similar situation can find out how you can use his tips and tricks to also better yourselves. So
amazing.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's short and sweet.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I'll kind of introduce Josh's bio so he doesn't have to. You can go off of it, Josh, if you like, but Josh Morgan is the founder and creator of Momentum Productions. He began as an actor. Josh found his passion as a content creator and began his journey. He has worked with many celebrities, clients ranging from bodybuilders like Mike O'Horan, producer Randy Jackson, YouTubers like Rebecca Black, and more. Now Josh is focusing on his own brand and content on YouTube and Instagram. When I read your bio, and I was like, Rebecca Black, is that Rebecca Black who made Friday?
That's right, my dude.
Oh my God, that's
Friday.
Awesome.
Yeah. Is that like the most proudest moment of your career or what? Right?
Honestly, she's a great person to work with. When she was doing vlogs, I shot a few of her vlogs back in the day. She's not a crazy vlogger like the other people on YouTube. Like, she's sane. She's perfectly sane. She won't do anything stupid or breaking, the peace or anything like that. So she was a really fun person to work with. And I didn't put this in my bio, but actually one of my first YouTubers I did work with was Jake Paul. This is right before he dove into YouTube. This is when he was still doing a lot of quick videos on Vine and stuff. That was the transition from Vine to YouTube. So this was 2015, 2016.
Damn, but yeah. So if he's watching this right now, he has to give you credibility and some credit for his success.
But that was a crazy experience, dude.
Right. What were you shooting with Jake Paul? Were you shooting his Vines back in the day, or was he just early tube?
Yeah, so it was basically a little short, a 7-second video of them. This was back when he lived in Hollywood in his old apartment. And they wanted to strip and dance in front of moving traffic. And I was supposed to shoot it. And like an idiot, I did. So basically what they did, they waited for the traffic to stop at a red light, and then they crossed the crosswalk, and then they started stripping off their clothes. So they were in their underwear basically and just dancing in front of cars. And the scary part was when the light turned green. That was the scary part because they didn't move. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting out of the way. I'm gonna just step off to the side onto the sidewalk. And I kept shooting them, and I was so embarrassed. I was like, dude, what am I doing? Dude.
Like, this is what you gotta do for your career to take off.
Oh no, dude. That was like my first taste of what YouTube is. Right. When it comes down to like, oh, this is what it's like being a creator or an influencer, right? And I was like, oh, that's a little scary. I mean, before that, I was doing also like interesting stuff. I was working with dating coaches, and I was filming motivational videos on how to pick up girls in LA. So that was an interesting part of my little career too.
That is awesome.
You know, since we're talking about like kind of your pathway to success, do you mind like just kind of like giving us your version of your bio, like, you know, where you started, your first video you kind of shot, and like how it came to where you are now?
Yeah, so it actually started in high school. So in around 2007, I'd say 2007, I was 13. Was I 13? I'm not good at math, but I was in high school. No, I was 14 or 15. Yeah, 14 or 15. So in 2007, I was really obsessed with like dirt bikes and gas scooters and all that type of stuff. So I bought a gas scooter for my birthday, and I went on YouTube to do like a lot of research on these gas scooters to see how they work and all that stuff. And then I was like, hey, how come I can't start a YouTube channel and start talking about building two-stroke motors and all that stuff? So I launched my first YouTube channel in 2007, and I started showing people how to take apart gas engines and put them back together. And then I actually started selling gas scooters. So that was like my first step into, you know, just kind of being an entrepreneur. So I started my first business in 2008. That's when I built my website, and I was selling gas scooters. And then that was my first experience with YouTube. And then it slowly went into dating coaches. And then so on after that, I started building another YouTube channel based on filmmaking and gear reviews. And that's where I am today, basically.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you've covered like a lot of gear in your career. Is there anything that like you really, like out of all the YouTube videos you make, like something you just absolutely love talking about? Because you talk about like gimbals, camera cages, lighting, audio. You talk about everything, but like, you know, is there something that you just love to talk about?
Dude, I'll tell you right now, a company reached out to me a few years ago called InMotion. And this company, InMotion, they make electric unicycles. So this guy emails me and he's like, hey, Josh, if we send you an electric unicycle, can you use it in a filmmaking tutorial? And I was like, I have no idea what that is, but yes, I'll see what I could do. So he sends me this electric unicycle, and it was hard as hell to ride in the beginning. But then when I started riding it, I was like, hey, okay, now I'm confident enough to hold some camera gear. And after I started getting good at riding this electric unicycle, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. So believe it or not, out of all the equipment that I own, besides, you know, the gimbals, which I also love, my favorite tool is an electric unicycle.
That's awesome, man. You're like on the same level of like Casey and Peter McKinnon, how they ride their.
Oh man, I want to see them on an electric unicycle. That would be cool.
Come to Canada, we'll collaborate with them, and we'll like do some sort of cinematographer.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Electric unicycle.
I'm a little bit interested. So after you got into with Jake Paul, did you end up continuing with him, or what happened there? Did you guys drop off, or you said, hey, I'm going to go a different direction, this isn't what I want to do?
So yeah, so 2015, 2016 is when Jake Paul started Team 10, and then we just lost connection. There was no drama, no beef or anything. So he started Team 10. That's when Alyssa Violet was a part of everything and all that other stuff. And then he just started his YouTube channel. He had his own separate videographer. honestly, he did scare the hell out. After I filmed that video in oncoming moving traffic, kind of scared the hell out of me, so I was okay with it. But behind the scenes, Jake was a cool dude. Like he was a good, I don't know about now. I'm sure things have changed now behind the scenes, but when I met Jake Paul, he was a cool dude, very sweet. You know, he bought me lunch. You know, when Christmas came, he texted me. He was like, "Dude, I hope you have a great Christmas, Happy New Year." Like he was a really friendly dude. So yeah, I mean, it was just his transition to Team 10. We just kind of fell off of communication.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds good. What's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career? We're getting a little deep here.
I would have wanted, first thing, I would have wanted to start a YouTube channel earlier. That's the one thing. Just to start it is one thing. Another thing I wish I would have known is how to do proper thumbnails, how to do proper tags, all of that stuff. And then also how to reach out to companies, collaborate with other people. That was something, it took me until I was like 23 to learn, which I should have learned fresh out of high school. I wish I learned it then. But yeah, those are probably the biggest things.
Mm-hmm. When you started to reach out to other companies, did you have like a big following, or were you still just getting started?
My first collaboration with a company was, I guess it was a decent, it was like 3,000 subscribers, I think it was. And this was for manual stabilizers. It was a company called Lang. They made a ton of these, kind of like glide cams. So they actually reached out to me, surprisingly. I think it was around 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers. I really don't remember. And that was actually my first product video where a company sent me something to review. I still didn't know how to reach out to companies then. It took me a few collaborations to really get used to it. So I probably didn't start reaching out to companies until after 10,000 subscribers. And then if you don't have 10,000 subscribers, you should still reach out to companies. You'd be surprised. As long as your content is decent, sometimes you don't even need the views. You just need to make good content. So I would say the earlier you start, the better to reach out to companies.
Right. I'm wondering, on a personal note, how many pieces of content were you creating these companies when you first started?
Oh man, I was obsessed. I was doing maybe 3 or 4 YouTubes minimum a week. It was nuts, man. Yeah, I didn't really have a full-time job back then. So I was in my parents' backyard just making as much content as possible. And I really didn't have a vision or knowledge of where my channel would go. I just posted content out there. I didn't really use statistics based, I didn't use statistics to help guide my videos. I just posted content on what I wanted to shoot, basically. So,
right.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the only way you can survive in this game, right? It's like you come in here because you like what you do, and if you're just controlled by a company and you have no freedom, right? It kind of just goes against what being a YouTuber is about, right? Being what a content creator is about. 100%.
Exactly.
Moving on to the next question. What we want to know is, what is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
Biggest failure. Not being an actor.
That
was my biggest failure.
Why is that?
So I grew up, I was born and raised in LA, and obviously the stereotype is if you're in LA, you're either going to be a waiter or an actor. So I tried to be the actor. And what I did, I signed up to a bunch of acting classes. I was trained majorly in Shakespeare. So I was doing a lot of Shakespeare plays, Midsummer's Night Dream, all that good stuff, Romeo and Juliet. So I was trained theatrically, but I really wanted to do TV and film. So I went on all these auditions. I did really bad because, believe it or not, theatrical and TV and film are two different animals, two completely different animals. When you're doing a lot of theatrical work, you're expecting a reaction from an audience. When you're doing TV and film, you have no audience, so that you don't get any of that reaction. You can't feed off of emotion as much. So TV and film is just, it was something that I wasn't properly trained in, and I just didn't do so well in, and it was very upsetting for me. On top of that, in LA, there's a lot of scam agencies where they're like, okay, give us $5,000 and maybe we'll give you an agent and see where that takes you. So that's one thing I had to learn the hard way, and you shouldn't have to pay anybody any money. If an agent sees potential in you, they will work for you because they get a cut of what you earn. So honestly, for me, it just didn't work out in TV and film, and that kind of gave me that extra push and motivation to just go towards the internet route. And so far, I am pretty happy with where that took me.
Right. Not going on about like that failure, did you end up learning anything from that experience?
Yeah, have tough skin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't, if someone tells you you suck, you say, all right, I'll fix it. And you get better from that. You can't really get upset at every negative thing that happens, especially if someone tells it to your face. So you got to have tough skin. It's, it's the media industry. People are going to backstab you. People are going to go after you. You have to be tough. So that's the one thing I learned, is that you have to be tough in this game, and you have to watch your back, because it's a brutal business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very brutal business.
Mm-hmm. Did your experience in theater, being an actor, did it ever help you, get in front of the camera, or when you started, were you still nervous to talk?
Actually, yeah, it did help me. Surprisingly, I'm a lot more nervous on camera than I am in front of people. I don't know why. It just feels weird talking into like a plate of glass, but I don't know. Yeah, it definitely helped and prepared me, but there are definitely times where I get nervous on camera still.
100%. Yeah, so for anybody who's watching here, you're going to face failures in your career. Josh has gone a long way. Like you guys heard, he started in 2003. We're fast forwarding almost 14 years to the point where he considers that, he's happy. But in the beginning, guys, you're going to be scared talking into the camera. You're not going to know what you're going to want to talk about. You might actually change the type of content you create, and you might be scared to be reaching out to large companies because you don't have a big following. But the proof is in the pudding. If Josh can do it, you guys can do it too. So that was a lot of valuable information, just talking about your history and how you used your assets to better your skills. And I think it's interesting that even though that you practice theater in front of audiences, speaking to a camera was still difficult. I mean, we still feel that all the time. Even doing this live stream, we got to do research and stuff like that just to be prepared. But once we get started, it's anything can happen. So it's fun and scary at the same time.
Right. Even though we've been doing it for so long, even since grade 7, we were always on camera, creating our own videos and YouTube videos as well. And to this day, you still get nervous sometimes, right, when you're in front of the camera.
Yeah. Exactly.
What would you say to people who might be experiencing fear? I feel so many content creators, one of the most common things I hear is that they hate their own work. They produce content and they're either scared to show it or brand their personal lives, their personal Instagram to share with their family and friends. They're scared to take that step. Do you have any advice for anybody who wants to start but doesn't?
Yeah, the number one reason why I was scared, and I think most people are scared to be on camera, is that it's a self-conscious issue. So what a good way is to get rid of this issue is to just look at yourself in the mirror and just say a paragraph of a famous script, and just practice in front of a mirror. And then eventually when you start getting comfortable in front of the mirror, then believe it or not, the camera is a lot easier than looking at yourself in the mirror. So I would say the mirror is a really good way to prep for the camera. And it's also really good for speech. So if you get up every morning, say a phrase from like a famous movie or a script or something like that, do the same thing at night before bed, you're really going to start training yourself for the camera and for your overall speech. So that's something I've been doing, and it's helped a lot.
That's an awesome tactic. So anyone who's like looking to speak to the camera, I think that's an incredible tactic. I mean, like, you know, mentally I'm always kind of doing the same thing, but not actually doing it in real life. But 100% I can see how useful that can be if, like, you know, you're going to speak to the camera later that day.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. Some people are saying our voice is echoing. Is anyone else having voice issues on Instagram?
If that's the issue, I might have to put on headphones then.
Oh, you're hearing us through, you definitely need headphones, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me put on headphones then.
No worries. Guys, if you guys have any, while Josh can go get some headphones, if you guys have any questions, we're going to be doing Q&A at the end. You can ask us questions. You can ask Josh questions. All you need to do on Instagram is go to the bottom. There's a question mark. Go in there and you can type in your question and ask us whatever questions you have. Josh just put in some headphones here. If you guys can give us a confirmation if the echo is gone, if everything is good, we'd love to know. Amazing. So moving on, some advice you would give someone wanting to pursue a similar career like yours?
Yeah, don't be afraid to. Oh wow, I still hear an echo. Maybe.
I think everyone's saying it's good on Instagram there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder what that
you
is.
might hear.
All right.
You might hear a slight echo because Instagram doesn't let you fully mute.
Oh, then that's probably what it is. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll leave it. Sorry. What was the question?
Yeah. So, what advice would you give someone who's trying to pursue a similar career to yours?
I would say that you should definitely reach out to clients. That's probably the number one question I get asked on Instagram and through email is, how do I get work? Well, you should be in charge of finding work. Don't expect people to come to you. You have to go and find the people. So don't be the hunted, be the hunter. That's like the famous saying. And I completely believe in that. And that's something that I was taught. Like when I was working with the dating coach at the time, he was actually a really big mentor for me because he started a multi-million-dollar business and he taught me how to convert cold leads into hot leads, how to properly write emails, how to properly write newsletters. So, and the number one thing he told me was how to talk to people, how to reach out to people, and how to connect to people. So that's the number one thing I would say that you would have to do as a beginner, especially, is don't be afraid to reach out. And that's how you're going to start. I reached out to Jake Paul. I reached out to the dating coach. I reached out to all of these people that made a huge impact on my life. So even Rebecca Black, I reached out to her. So that's what you just got to do.
100%. Yeah. I just wanted to share a little story because it's exactly a similar situation. So, you know, everyone in the world has been going through this COVID thing in their own experience, right? And a part of our downtime was figuring out where we wanted to kind of like, you know, pursue next in the commercial world. So, you know, I decided to just go the old school cold calling route. Like I feel like a lot of people are always thinking of like, oh, what's the best tactic? Maybe I'll create like a 3-page PDF, like website portfolio, and all those are incredible and 100% you should be creating. But you know, it is extremely useful when you're able to portray yourself, like through a phone call, through a Zoom chat, whatever it may be. So I just cold called like a bunch of marketing agencies asking them if they were looking for outsourcing their videography services to another production company. And all the responses I got back were like, oh, we already have an in-house production team. Like, oh, people like our $100,000 budgets. But then eventually, you know, out of my 5 calls, one person, and was actually one of the like video production managers, a part of Brand and Motor, which is like Toronto's biggest marketing agency, said that we approached them at the perfect time. And if I never sent a phone call, or if I never tried to call them, if I never had a chance to introduce myself, I know 100% my email would have just been like disregarded, because they get like hundreds a day. But if you're able to like, let's introduce yourself, explain the value you can bring to that company, it's gonna light up some interest in the back of their mind, and that starting conversation is your foot in the door. So, you know, don't be scared. Like, take the risk. Just do it. You know, you don't know what's gonna happen, and it could be the one thing that leads you to being where Josh is right now. You know.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense there, because I feel like even something that I think Josh would agree with, that I even learned back in the day with dating coaches as well, is like, it's a numbers game, right? It's a numbers game. And that's the biggest thing I've learned, and that goes through sales as well. They teach you it's a numbers game. So it really replicates back to that as well.
Exactly. And you also can't be afraid of the follow-up just because they don't respond. Like, my rule of thumb was, if your goal should be to always get a response. So if they disregard your email, you send them another email a week later, and you don't stop until you get a response. I did the same thing to Ty Lopez. I don't know if you know who Ty Lopez is. Yeah. So I wanted to be his videographer, and I emailed him constantly, no response. I probably got up to 25 emails until I got a response from him. The response was no, but the fact that I got him to respond to me proved my point that yes, you always have to follow up. Always have to follow up, because if you just sit there not getting a response, then you're left in the clouds and you're constantly thinking about it. You always have to get closure from a potential client. So never be scared to follow up. That was like the most powerful thing I learned when it came down to just communicating with other people and looking for work.
Yeah, that's very true. On our end, we follow at least 5 times with the client as well. So if we get a wedding inquiry, we at least have 4 to 5 follow-ups after that, because it's like they're reaching out to us too, right? So it's like, obviously they want our services, so you do have to follow up. And people are busy at the end of the day. And I'm not even joking, you guys. A lot of the time, these guys are like, "Thank you for following up with us," right? Like, "Thank you, because I didn't have the time, or this slipped out of into like another inbox, right? Spam inbox or whatever." But they always thank you for following up, and you get a final answer from them. And it's probably like 10, 20, I don't know the exact percentage, but like 10 to 30%, if we didn't follow up, we wouldn't get like that much more business, right? So 10 to 30% of our business is just coming from follow-ups. It might even be bigger, to be honest. I'm just saying that number. What are the best resources that helped you along the way in your career?
YouTube. I mean, I learned everything that I learned from YouTube. I did take 3 courses in Santa Monica College on film. Didn't learn anything. But the one thing I did learn that I think was extremely powerful was how to work in a team. I didn't learn anything about lighting, script writing. That was just, unfortunately, I just didn't get anything out of those classes when it came to that field. But when it came down to working in a team and how to communicate to other people, I think for that reason alone, film classes and film courses are 100% needed. Obviously, right now, we're in a time where that's probably not that easy to do. But when things get back to normal and you're trying to learn more about film, learn the lighting and all that stuff on the internet. But the only way you can learn how to work in a team is in person. So sign up for a few courses and just learn how to work in a team. I think that was very, very powerful.
If you guys don't have like the budget to go to school for whatever reason, you know what, like there are online communities where people are always looking to collaborate with makeup artists, with designers, whatever, to create like a short film or something just for fun or for a school project. Volunteer your services to get yourself in that team and learn how to work with all the different departments that make a successful film or something like that. Like if you are interested in going to school but you might not have budget, that is another alternative for you guys too. So whoever takes value from
Definitely,
that.
like look at community. If you have community colleges, the prices are actually pretty cheap as well. So, I mean, yeah, give that a shot too.
Yeah, and Facebook groups, 100%. There's so many Facebook groups you can go into that you can just do like TFP groups, get to know people. Who are 3 people that are most influential to you? Doesn't need to exactly be 3. It can be 1, 2, 3. Whatever you have.
A homie of mine named James Matthews, man. That dude's a straight up inspirational dude. We always talk, and he's a funny guy. But a lot of the things that I've seen from his videos were just extremely inspiring. He's a solid dude. He really knows how to work a camera. He knows how to work lights, and he's just his videos are fun. And that's something I'm still learning how to do with my videos. It's just how to make things fun. So James definitely 1. 2, I would say Ridley Scott, the director. I think he's incredible filmmaker. I just love what he's doing. And lastly, I would probably say the Wachowski sisters, who made The Matrix. I think they're definitely another source of inspiration because they started a whole different field in cinematography. Like The Matrix was literally a revolution of filmmaking. If you rewatch that movie, you will see what I'm talking about. So I would say, those are, I would say those are the top 3. So James, if you're listening, bro.
Amazing. I'm gonna hop to the washroom. I drank a bunch of water beforehand.
Go for it,
man. Yeah.
It's my show now. Whoever's listening on Spotify after this has been published, this is not a regular occurrence. Okay. All right. Well, I'll just move on to the next question. And I really like conversations and just improv and just figuring out what makes content creators tick. I might actually take the opportunity to maybe go over some of the comments people have left chat. So if anybody wants to just mention something really quick, I'll try to give you a shout out if I find it really valuable. Here's an interesting question. I feel like we've kind of touched upon the topic of landing clients, and a lot of cinematographers, they get the creative side. They know what they want to create. They see it in their head. They go on YouTube and find out the technicalities of how to do that. But this one's more business-based, and I think it's very interesting. So Ahmad Bahardiwaj asks, how do you give quotations for your initial projects? He feels that the client shouldn't feel the quotation is too high for the project because it should also meet their their own basic expenses. This is an interesting one. I'll let Josh answer first, and then I will answer after because I'd like to tackle this one too.
Okay. So if you're getting into this field and you don't really know how to price your videos, a really good thing to do is to see what your competitors are doing. See what other videographers are charging, look at their quality of work, and then look at your quality of work and see if yours aligns with their quality. If it does, then you can charge similar prices. If it doesn't, then you either have to charge higher or less. So if you're looking at a competitor who's doing this full time, they're obviously making profit, they're making money. I would go off of similar pricing structures. But how do you know if your work is better than theirs? You have to talk to friends and family and ask them for their honest opinions, because sometimes you're going to look at your work, be like, oh my God, this is so good. And then you go get other people's opinions. They're going to be like, dude, no, you know, or it could be the complete opposite of that. So friends and family are your best tool to get an opinion of your work. And then I would say competitors are a good way to help you gauge your prices and to see where you should start your base pricing at.
100%. Actually, I don't even think I need to 2 cents of that, because I was going to basically say the exact same thing. You know, when you're giving a quotation, it basically means, like, they're basically asking, you know, what are you worth? You know, and that question comes from inside. Like, you know what you're worth, right? Like, if you have hard times giving quotations, you really need to take a look deep inside of yourself and figure out how much you think your time should cost your client, right? Like, basic expenses aside, for sure, throw it in. If you need to rent something, you know, you can include that. But everything is totally based off of what you think your value is. And you can say that you're worth $5,000. Someone might say you're $1,000. So you need to know, and when you give that quotation, you also need to stick by it, because it is a negotiation, right? Clients have their own budgets, their own train of thought. And if you start off with, for example, you said if your original quotation is too high, then you have to be able to either sell them on that because you know your value and you're going to stick to it, or you know that you can give them some slack and maybe you want to build a long-term relationship and get them to come back to produce more videos. But it all starts with self-awareness of what your value is. And I think Josh gave you a great tactic. You know, reach out to your friends and family and tell them to be brutally honest. So useful. Great tip. Great tip. Okay, so we'll just go back to the original questions, I guess. But I'm really glad that you guys brought up that point. If you guys want to ask more like business tips, feel free to put it in the Q&A in the Instagram. And if we find a really valuable one at the end of this podcast, we'll make sure to bring it up for you guys.
Amazing. Next question is, what's a common myth in the filmmaking community that you'd want to like debunk?
On YouTube or just in Hollywood in general?
Maybe both.
I don't have that much experience in Hollywood. I've only done like, what is it called? Extra work. I've worked with one pretty big DP, but I would say the biggest myth is, oh man, it's a hard one. Oh yeah. The biggest myth is everybody's rich in LA and in Hollywood and on YouTube, and everyone makes a ton of money. I feel like that's probably the biggest myth.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good myth as well. It's like people see you have like 100,000 followers like on YouTube and on Instagram, and instantly they're like, this guy's the millionaire, right? He makes so much money. But it's like, no, like we're grinding like every single day. Still, like, we're not at the point where we want to be. Like, yeah, we're comfortable. We're comfortable with what we make, and like we do have the opportunity to be full time. But still, at the end of the day, it's not like you can go support like another person or two other people. Sometimes, you know, it's really depending. And a lot of the time, like even if we do make money, even in our company, like me and Danny every year, we're like, hey, like, how much do we want to take out of the company? And really we're thinking like, what's the lowest amount we can take to survive? And then let's reinvest everything back into the company, because that's the only way you're going to grow your business. And at the end of the day, it's fun too. You know, it's all about the fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. I think we're good with the questions. We're going to move on to some Q&A here at this point. So if you guys do have any questions, you're on Instagram, you can leave it. There's a question mark. You guys see there's add a comment on the right-hand side. There's a question mark. You guys can ask your questions there. If you guys are on any of the live streams, you guys can just put it in the comments if you're not on Instagram. All right.
Peter, who loves Momentum's content. I'm not sure if he's a friend of yours. But okay,
no, Peter Shampoo, I know him. Yeah, he's a cool dude.
Question comes from Shira. I hope I didn't butcher that. I feel like I butchered so many names. What college is the best to study filmmaking?
You're asking the wrong dude. I don't know. I don't know.
When I went over this.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say anything.
Yeah, when I went over this question, I was like, honestly, like any college can be good for filmmaking. It really depends like where you live. I heard like Toronto Film School has a really good one in Toronto here. I'm sure LA has like a bunch. What I would do personally is go on Google and then be like, what's the best filmmaking schools, and then see like what the list is. But sometimes they pay for those lists too, right? So if you want to get a little bit deeper, I would like get into the groups of those schools and then find someone in there and then like interview them almost and be like, is this worth it? Like, did you learn a lot? And then from there you can kind of figure out like what schools are the best. But I would say YouTube is better than school in my opinion.
If you really want to pursue the school format for filmmaking, one thing that we learned, I think it was 2 weeks ago from a cinematographer named Evan, was that he really, like, I think it really depends on your style of studying. He really enjoyed his school because they didn't hold their hands at all. When he jumped into the film school, it was like, here's your camera, here's your project, here's your team, now you have to go and create the content. And they didn't like baby step him, and he didn't have to like, read all the documents and the manuals to how to create these cameras, use these cameras. He did that on his own time. What they did was put the camera in his hands so that he could figure out how to use it right away. So if you are that type of learner, then I would say when you get into these Facebook group communities to learn more about this school, that's probably something you want to ask. If you're more of like, you prefer reading the manuals, you prefer doing the books, you prefer doing like, more lectures and learning theory, then find a school that suits you in that situation. So I think it's kind of hard to say what is the best college because it really depends on your learning style, right? But good luck to you. All right, moving on to the next question.
Amish Gutam, 1997. Is mirrorless better than DSLR from your experience?
Now, yeah. When mirrorless was first introduced, DSLR was still king, but now mirrorless is taking over. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your gear setup right now, by the way, out of curiosity? Like, what are you using?
So right now, I'm actually shooting on a Sigma 24-70 Art with a Sony A9. That's the webcam, and then my main shooter is a Sony A7S III.
Nice.
So both mirrorless cameras, and yeah, I've been very happy with them.
Yeah. Did you make a transition? Like you said, when DSLRs were bigger, I'm assuming you had like Canons or Nikons, and then you switched?
Yeah, I actually had a Canon 5D Mark II. I love that camera. That was just I still like yeah. I honestly like the feel of Canon bodies more than any other camera. I think Sony Alpha bodies are just still too small. I like size, So the 5D Mark II really was just, I really regret selling that camera because it was a tool that I used that really helped jumpstart YouTube for me and my client work in general. And overall, the feel of that camera was just better than any of the cameras I own right now. So, but I would still say mirrorless. When it comes down to performance, mirrorless is definitely better.
100%. Yeah, I'm still pretty nostalgic over the Canon brand. Like, we started off our video production using just what was on the market was just so incredible for the amount we had to pay. But I still remember going back into like my high school memory box and thinking about how me and Poya were just using a Canon T3i with like one lens, like with the kit lens and like the nifty 50, and like we were just like having so much fun. It was just so nostalgic, and like every time I think back to like early filmmaking for us when it was just like shits and giggles and just having fun and testing things, like loved the feel and like the user interface of Canons, but you know,
Sony just
Yeah.
needs them at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Sony right now is killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too good in the game. Next question comes from Speed Fabby. Which software is best for editing and easy to use?
Dude, I'm on Final Cut. I used Premiere. I mean, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I just don't like Premiere. I started off. Yeah, I know. I just don't like Premiere.
end the podcast right now.
Yeah. I started on Sony Vegas though. That was like when I had a PC, Sony Vegas was like, damn. So that was a really good software. And then I think one of the first softwares that I ever used was Corel Video Studio. That thing would make its own music video for you. It would like do all the effects for you. So I was like, all right, press render, done. That was probably the best software I ever used. But no. Like in real life, dude, I'm a Final Cut guy. It's fast, it's quick, it's easy, and the only thing I don't like about it is the project file sizes. They're huge. Like one project will be 20 gigs, like just from proxy files. So that's the one thing I don't really like. And the second thing I don't like is that it doesn't really work with other platforms. So, Adobe has its own universe of platforms like Premiere, After Effects, Photoshop. They all link up and work hand in hand. So I hope that Apple gets their stuff together and starts creating more software like that. And then that would be really cool.
That would be really cool, yeah. I think when someone asks like best editing software, I think it's really hard to say because there's pros and cons to every single program. I think it's more important to think which program do you like more and then just stick with it, right? Like you can totally bounce around between different softwares, but then, it gets confusing, shortcuts and the outlay and the ways you color grade and stuff like that. I would say if you're just starting, once you decide on a program, whether it's because you want to do like a 2-month trial or it's like a monthly cost or you bootleg the program, like just use it and stick with it. It doesn't really affect your editing intuition. It just, it's a preference.
Yeah.
Price is also like a big thing too. I think Adobe stopped doing the one-time fee type thing. Now they're doing a subscription-based system where Final Cut is just a flat rate, $300, you got Final Cut with all the updates. So
right. Yeah, Adobe definitely is really feeding on that subscription base. And I see like a lot of new filmmakers who are just like, Adobe's like really expensive to get in because they're charging what, like $20-$30 a month, something like that.
Oh, for like the whole suite, I think it's like $60-$70 a month.
Yeah, for someone new, that's like so hard to pay thousands of dollars a month, thousands of dollars a year just to have Adobe.
And Premiere still crashes. Like they still haven't figured that out.
Right, and you have the weirdest problems on Premiere all the time. I think this is a very interesting question. The Herald, coming from the Herald Jill, is 1080 still okay for paid work in 2021? I'm just gonna answer that first off here. I think it's completely okay. We were still using it until we just got the Sony a7S III a couple months ago. 1080 is still like normal for YouTube, like anywhere, and even like commercials. I think when it gets up to 4K and 8K, if your client really wants that, just rent out the camera for that day. So when you're making your packages, for example, when we make ours, like we're offering 1080, 4K, and then you have like 8K cinema. Like we don't personally own like a Red camera or cinema cameras, but we have DPs who work with us who own those cameras. So then we end up bringing them in. So obviously, the client's paying for that fee. So 1080 is still okay in my opinion. Josh, I can go on that.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. 1080p for the client, 4K for you. 4K should just be used as a tool to help you zoom in and do all these cool effects. But the client, the end result, I think 1080p is great.
100% agree. Next question comes from Shanette.
You should stop reading the.
Yeah, the names. I'm terrible with names. Well, I want to give them a shout out. That's their question. How to find investors at initial stages for projects?
That is a multi-step process. I feel there are so many different routes you can pursue to find investing. The most important part is probably the pitch deck, right? The way you formulate or have prepared your project to present to your investors are going to be super important. But you can really find investors anywhere. You can reach out to wealthy family members, wealthy friends, reach out to wealthy people who might be interested in seeing your project actually come to life. So like, for example, if you're talking about like mental illness, maybe you can go to a wealthy doctor who specializes in mental health, and maybe he might want to, invest in project for a small credit or something like that. You can go through all those sorts of platforms to find, investors from like just regular people like you and me. But yeah, it's a multi-step process, and I don't think we can answer it all right here. But yeah, very interesting question.
Yeah, I'd say definitely a numbers game as well, right? You're reaching out to a lot of investors, a lot of people. You just got to have like hard skin and know like that's part of the game. Like you're literally a salesperson if you're trying to get your film invested in or your project invested in.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget about crowdfunding. That's another good one.
Yes, exactly.
Indiegogo, all that stuff. That's really powerful.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Friends and family, especially. I am Rika asks, Final Cut Pro best plugin to use. I think this one's good for you. Josh, has you used that?
Yeah. Some of the best ones I've used were from Pixel Film Studios. This is not sponsored, but they're the only company right now that has the most accurate tracking plugins for Final Cut. So, Final Cut doesn't have built-in motion tracking, unfortunately. So I think for 30 or 35 bucks, Pixel Film Studios sells a tracking plugin, and that plugin alone is very powerful because you can do some really cool effects with text and graphics. And yeah, I would say start off with that plugin and see where that takes you.
Amazing. Best camera for a new photographer. Any suggestions?
Best camera for a new photographer. Try out. It depends on your budget, obviously. But I think Canon still takes the cake when it comes down to photography. I think just the ergonomics, the body, all of that good stuff. Sony is a video company. Canon is, Canon also does video, but I think photography side is very powerful on Canon's equipment. Sony is good too, but when I took photos on my 5D, I was like, oh my God. That's just my personal opinion, but I think if you can, buy a used 5D Mark II for like 800 bucks, and that's your photography camera. Done.
Boom. That's what's up.
That's it. That's all you need.
We still buy used equipment to this day. Like, I don't think, aside from the first thing we bought was the Sony A7S III, of course, because like who's selling that used right now? But like all of our lenses used, like any equipment we can get used. Like anything we buy used, because usually in Canada you're paying like 13% tax, so you're saving on the tax portion, and then you're saving like 100 to 200 bucks on top of that, which then makes you get other free stuff, right? So like very conscious of your budget and buy used 100% of the time. And I completely agree. For a new photographer, Canon is the best way to go. I've always seen Sony as like a video company. They've been killing it in video, but when it comes down to photography, I agree with Josh for going with Canon. I think this is a really good question by Borrowed Sins. When starting a big project, what are some of the key factors that you and your team take into consideration?
Number one is budget. I would say budget is numero uno. That's the one thing that's gonna make things work. Budget, location scouting. Obviously, the script is a huge part. Script and budget, I feel like, are the two biggest things. If the script is crap, then why finance the film? So yeah, script and budget, location scouting. Obviously, you have to have good actors, but if you want the top of the top, the most important thing, I would say that's budget and script.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think I think it'll also vary as well, like depending on what you mean by big budget, right? Or big project. Like a big project to somebody could be maybe like $10,000, and a big project to like a successful DP could be like $500,000. And in both of those situations, I think what is most important will completely change. So I would say maybe keep that in mind, right? Like depending on your project, there is going to be key ingredients. So for example, we shot a commercial with my aunt, and the most important aspect of that commercial was that there had to be an emotional response from the viewer. They wanted to display the project as something that was going to increase the personal value in your life, like something that would, you know, benefit your family and your friends, and they wanted to build that emotional connection. So in that situation, as the director, I felt that the most important thing was finding incredible actors, because you cannot have like, you know, a great DP and amazing sound technician, you know, designer, location, but if your actors weren't able to portray that emotion and get the viewer to really feel something, then everything would have kind of gone to waste. So I think the most important thing in a big project will always vary, but be aware of that, right? Like it's never always going to be just one or two things. There might be something you're not thinking of that could be the most important thing. But yeah, that's just my opinion on that.
Right. And if someone's hiring you, like, I think one of the most important things to take into consideration is the client's vision and what they want from that project, and what are they trying to sell a product, right? Like it really depends on that. I had a question here, that I thought was super relatable, by Carew Daniels. I don't like editing lengthy videos. Does it mean I'm lazy, or is it just a mode of working? I feel like we've all been through this at some point in our career. I remember last year, me and Danny decided to edit less wedding videos, because we used to edit all of our wedding videos. But then after a while, like editing wedding videos are very like repetitive. So now like we just hire someone. And it really depends what type of situation you're in, right? Because if you're just starting a company, like you can't get lazy about editing and be like, I'm gonna hire someone to do it, but then you're losing money, right? So it's really depending. Sometimes you just gotta like eat shit, I would say, right? And just do it yourself, because you don't have the money or resources to do it. And you know, we were in that position for the first 2 to 3 years, right? So we decided, hey, instead of paying someone $300 to edit a wedding film, I'd rather take that $300, because what am I doing today, right? Like, do I have a bunch of clients lined up right now? Like, what am I doing today with my day? So it really comes down to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's pretty solid, dude. I 100% agree. Yeah.
Amazing. Share your opinion about Indian movies. I don't think any of us watch Indian movies. It's Rahul, so we personally wouldn't know. Josh, have you?
I've watched a few, but not all the way through. But Some of them, like Bollywood movies. Yeah, they're pretty cool. They're pretty cool.
They definitely are. What's the best budget studio lights to start with? I think this is a great question for you, Josh.
Godox. It's all about Godox. I was a big Aperture fan in the beginning, and then Godox made the same lights for half the price, and I was like, "What? Is that possible?" They skip out a little bit on the price because they remove the case from the package, and some of the lights are made out of plastic and not metal. But honestly, you get the same light quality, higher light output. So I just got these new tube lights from Godox, and I'm like, yes, thank you. And they just keep improving so much on their lighting equipment, and they keep the prices the same. They don't increase the price. They keep them at like a really affordable cost. So I would say go for Godox, and then if you have a higher budget and you need something that's built better, something that comes with a case, then you can start looking at Aperture. But in the beginning, I would say like get a few Godox SL60Ws. They're like $130, and they have almost the same light output as a Aperture 120D. So it's like $130 or $500. Like, it's a pretty big difference in price. But yeah, I would say Godox is definitely the best budget light that you can get.
Right. And I feel like this is where that tip of buying used comes in, because you can buy these lights used for cheaper, and then by the time you sell those same lights, you can sell them for the exact same price off them. So you're not even losing out on your investment, and then you just take that capital and push it over into the new Aperture lights or whatever light you're going for. I think me and Danny started with Newer as one of our lights. You get like the panel lights on Amazon. Those were like really good lights, and we used them up until like last year when we got our Aperture 300D, right? So, and even soft boxes, the company sponsored us with like, you know, those studio soft boxes that you can pretty much get anywhere with the huge ass bulbs. We use those as well. We had like 6 or 7 lights in total that we were using. Obviously, they weren't the most powerful, but we had numbers to make up for it if we needed them. Guys, if you have questions, make sure you hit the question mark and ask them, not in the comments, because they're just like way too fast for us to do. I'm not sure if Josh, you're too into photo editing, but I know Danny is. Which is the best app for editing in indoor or outdoor photography?
100%, it's going to be Lightroom and Photoshop. Any professional photographer would tell you Lightroom or Photoshop, at least as like a basic starting point, like just to filter through, select, color correct, and then if you want to do like some other extra graphics, then you bring it over to Photoshop. But yeah, I would say Lightroom and Photoshop, and that's all. That's what I would recommend. Amazing.
This is a really good question, I think, on both ends. Is Weeble S a good buy for Sony a6400 with 18 to 105 lens? It's on discount. Do you recommend something else?
I mean, I have it and I love it. I've owned so many. Yeah, I've owned so many gimbals, it's ridiculous. But yeah, it's for the price, it's the best gimbal on the market, and it's also the smallest for what it can do. So yeah.
By any chance, Josh, do you have like any like discount codes on your website or your Instagram or your YouTube you want to refer people who might be looking for equipment here?
Right now, I don't have any discount codes, unfortunately.
Right now. So if you guys want discount codes in the future, make sure to give Josh a follow, and eventually you might get a nice 10-50% off that Weeble S you were looking at.
Yeah, you can also reach out to us. I think we have a discount code right now for June. If you are buying the Weeble S, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, we've been sponsored with a bunch of companies as well. June, we personally reached out to them, and is where we actually met Josh at a Profusion event a couple years ago. But June was like one of our first gimbals ever.
Yeah.
It was like the Crane 2.
Crane V1. Or
Yeah, V2, the Crane V2, and it was like amazing. And then we started using other gimbals, and we're like, yo, like June is like killing it. And then they came out with a Weeble S, so light. Like DJI, bro, has like nothing on June. I feel like DJI is like kind of overrated in that sense. Their gimbals are like super heavy. I feel like, especially a couple years ago compared to June. But the Weeble S is amazing for what it is and the price point it's at. Moving on to the next question. Other than YouTube, what projects do you do, Josh? Are you a single fighter?
Am I a single fighter?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. I hope you knew what it meant.
Well, before like COVID, yeah, I would shoot a lot of like, I'm big into fitness, so a lot of my clients were like bodybuilders, and I was shooting a lot of their YouTube content. Now it's like full on YouTube and Instagram. Like I can't work with anybody right now for obvious reasons. So, but before COVID, yeah, I was doing a lot of client work, fitness content, motivational content, and that was probably my bread and butter before I did full-time YouTube.
Right. For those clients, I think when they ask like single fighter, I think that means like, did you do it all by yourself? Like you were handling audio, directing, everything by yourself?
No, exactly.
Was that a challenge for you at all? Like, was it, difficult?
Audio, dude. Audio is always such a challenge. I think that's like the hardest thing for me. That's why I don't shoot weddings, dude. I'm just paranoid about audio, because for every person you mic up, you have to have a backup, and then you have to have a backup of that backup, and then you have to organize all the audio files, and then it's just, I can't do it. So I had 2 bad experiences with weddings, and after those experiences, I was like, yeah, I'm not ever doing that again. Because of audio.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like trying to tell somebody like, oh yeah, we didn't get any of that.
Exactly.
You can't hear it at all through the microphone, but you can hear it through the camera. It's just very echoey. Yeah, we have it, but we're not going to use it.
Exactly. Usually when solo at a wedding, it's like you run into the ceremony, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes left, right? Because some people don't plan properly, even though you tell them to. And then you're like, all right, I got to set up like 3 to 3 cameras, right? Like 2 to 3 cameras. And then I got to find this officiant, mic him up, mic the bride, or mic the groom up. So it definitely is like a lot you're doing. And of course, 1 out of 100 weddings, you might mess it up. So it is definitely.
Only in my nightmares, bro, will I do a wedding.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't like weddings for the reason they don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
You just got to have a backup plan in case you do.
Yeah.
This one's, I like.
Run.
Question.
This one?
Yeah.
I think that was. How much is it important? How much is it important for a cinematographer to have editing sense while shooting video content?
It's very important, because you need to see what's doable and what's not doable from the editor's standpoint. Yeah, editors are magical, but it depends on how good your editor is. So it's very important to know how your editor thinks and what their capabilities are. So as a DP, as a director, you need to have some sort of sight, some sort of vision from the editing point of view. And a lot of the times, the director is in the editing room. I would say most of the time, the editor is the director is in the editing room. So yeah, if you're a director, you 100% need to know how to edit. If you're a DP, you also need to know how to edit, because this just gives you a wider spectrum of what's doable with your shots and your movie and your content.
Mm-hmm. Since you kind of do everything, Josh, do you have like a process for planning your video content? Like like, you're talking about like the editing sense and all that. Do you think of it all as in sequences, or do you kind of like start filming and you're like, oh, like this would be a good time to like cut away, and then you just tell the camera cut away, and then in the editing when you do the thing, and like, what's your workflow process?
So it's basically, I got it down to a point where it's just, I don't even think about it anymore. But basically, I get all of this, I write down some notes. I first, like, let's say I'm doing a product review. I play around with the product, see what it can, see what it can't do, take some notes. I definitely get all of my shots that I want, such as wide establishing shots, close-up shots. You always want to get more B-roll than you need, just in case when you start doing your talking head, it could just, you definitely want to have more B-roll than you need. But honestly, the way I shoot, everything just comes together in editing because it's very simple. I have a talking head, and then I have B-roll shots, and then it's very easy to splice all of that in together into one video.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Amazing. Last question here before we all take off. As a fresh starter, is it better to rent out, or is it better to invest and own all your own?
Again, it depends on your budget. It depends on your budget and on your project. I think it's important to own some equipment, but that equipment that you own should be able to do a lot of basic work. So, have basic lights, have a basic camera, have basic lenses. Anything specialized like a super slow-mo camera, that stuff you obviously rent out. Don't go bankrupt by buying equipment. A lot of people think that the more equipment they have, the better they are, or the more work they'll get. That's not necessarily the case. I think that if you're a solo person, if you're an entrepreneur, you really have to think about budget. That's the number one thing. You have to stay afloat as a business. Then once you have a budget in mind, that's how you'll get a better picture of what you need to own and what you can rent down the line.
I agree with that, yeah, for sure. I was just thinking at the same time, like, if you do plan on renting, one of the biggest problems is that you're not experienced with the gear you're renting out. Because the last thing you want to do is like rent out some high, like an Ursa Mini red camera, and then not even know how to expose properly. That would just ruin everything. So like, if you're going to invest in a camera, and you're going to use that camera for a very long time, like, okay, it makes sense. But if you're just renting out gear because you think that it's required to get like, something incredible, chances are you might actually be ruining your own project, because you might arrive on set and then you and the AC are like spending an hour over the time that you have just trying to figure out how to rig the camera together properly with like a matte box and stuff. So like, if you do plan on renting, just make sure you know the gear you're renting down to a T. The last thing you want to do is like be trying to color correct heavily overexposed image like footage, and it's completely like not recoverable. You don't want that. So yeah, that's
exactly. I've had a really bad experience with a Red camera. I love Red, but I shot a wedding with 3 Red Geminis, which is like the low light camera from Red. Very bad idea. It was a very bad idea. But it wasn't my decision. I'm not going to put the full blame on myself. But so basically what was happening, we had 3 Red Geminis running. 2 were covering the altar, I believe. Yeah, altar, right? Yeah, that's how long it's been. And then I was covering like the bride and the groom walking to the altar. So as they were walking, I was changing the shutter speed, and then the camera froze. I've never in my life had a Sony or a Canon camera ever freeze on me, but a Red Gemini, I was changing the shutter speed, because I was switching from slow-mo to 24 frames per second. You need to change the shutter speed. It froze. And then I restarted the camera. I had to take out the battery, put it back in. I ran to the altar to get that third angle. And another Red Gemini also shut off. So it's like, what the hell? They fixed that issue in a new firmware, but that was just like another like detrimental part that happened during a wedding where I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this.
Right.
And
It's
that was from a,
know,
yeah, it was, Red Gemini, man.
it's like, Red, you owe my client some money.
I never knew
Revival.
how the wedding video turned out. I didn't edit it, thank God. So I'm just assuming that everything is okay. But never again. Never again.
Amazing. Awesome, dude. Josh, I really enjoyed our time here with you. It was a lot of fun. I feel like, you know, when we first met you, you were an awesome, cool dude, and you still have that same vibe. So it was great vibing with you on this live. And I hope everyone got some value out of it. For the podcast, we are on the live right now. So if you guys do want to check out Josh, you can go up on the top left on the Instagram live and click his name, and you can follow him on Instagram and check out the YouTube channel from there as well. I'm sure it's in his bio. For the podcast, Josh, do you have anywhere people can find you on?
Instagram, momentum_productions, and then Momentum Productions on YouTube.
Amazing.
Definitely go check out his YouTube channel, guys. I'm telling you, if you're just starting, he literally covers everything from like editing, gimbal movements, lighting, audio. He literally has like 100+ videos on just this Jun crane. I'm not even kidding. It's in a massive library of content for people who are just cinematography, and you won't get just searching up Momentum Productions on YouTube. Like, he's got a lot of just amazing tips and tricks that will 100% help you in your next project. So,
yeah, I feel like
thank you so much.
You're like the most famous person for cranes, right? I remember being at the booth, and everyone would come up and they'd be like, "Josh, I saw your video." Oh my God!
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me too. Like, this was awesome. Thank you.
Of course, my dude. Thank you for hopping on. If you guys are on this Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, so in 2 days, we're going to be promoting it on our story, but we're going to be interviewing Jared Christopher. He's a 5-time Emmy-winning documentary filmmaker. He's most recently created and sold Texas 6 on an 8-episode half-hour doc series to CBS All Access. Following the second season, which will premiere in fall of 2021, he's most known for his documentary series Titletown TX, which was picked up by Facebook's Watch platform as part of its video launch in 2017. This is a very long bio, guys. Stick with me. The series received more than 60 million views and won numerous journal awards, including 2 Edward R. Murrow Awards for Excellence in Innovative and Excellence in Video. It can be seen on Amazon Prime Video. Christopher spent the last decade as a senior video journalist from McCarthy-owned Fort Worth Star-Telegram. He's won dozens of journalism awards during his tenure for projects that include coverage of a bunch of stuff. Christopher's also served as second camera on 2015 Sundance Film Festival breakout hit Girls Wanted, which was later acquired by Netflix, which is a very good documentary as well. But Chris has been on numerous platforms, so he's a director. If you guys are into directing, make sure to check him out on Thursday. He's going to be live on Instagram, and also it will be on the podcast as well. If you guys are tuning in right now and didn't catch the live, you guys can check out the podcast. It will be shared on here on our Instagram as well. Amazing. Thanks for sitting with us, guys. I hope you guys had an amazing time. Josh, enjoy your day, and we shall talk to you soon, my dude.
All right, guys. Take care. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Later.
All right. Bye.
What's up, guys? If you guys are listening to the podcast, make sure to give us 5 stars on any platform that we're on. We are on pretty much all the platforms, so if you do have time and you enjoyed this podcast, just make sure to give us a 5-star review or any review, wherever you feel like. Hope you guys have a great day. See you on the next one.